Hi there, this is the 18th episode of the GitHub Scraping Hacker Finder series. Now, if you'll recall, we ended the last one on sort of an Empire Strikes Back down note. What had happened was I was trying to run some acceptance tests, and I hit the GitHub rate limit. So what I wanted to do is figure out what this means. So I'm going to Google GitHub rate limit. Looks like I've been here before. Rate limit rules, that sounds promising. For basic authentication or OAuth, you can make up to 5,000 requests per hour. For unauthenticated requests, the rate limit allows you to make 60 per hour. So, okay, that makes sense now. I wasn't hitting it in early development in this series because I was doing basically one request. Once I started taking the one request and then going through and for each getting the detailed information, that meant that each run of the end-to-end tests was probably eating up 10, so I get 6 of those an hour. Yeah, that sounds right. So 6 an hour, huh? That's not really a blocker right now. It just means I need to be more careful about running the end-to-end tests. So why don't I do this? The first thing I want to make sure of is that everything I checked in and pushed up yesterday, it was all well and good, but I never did get to run these tests. Oh, so this is interesting. I will blow through my rate limit pretty much with one run of this, because each of these will be 10 requests, so that will be 40. I am going to do that. So I'm maybe hosed for the next hour. Okay, all 4 passed, so I'm happy. But the next time I do this, I don't have too many of these things left. So that's interesting. The first thing that comes to mind is I could authenticate. That gets me up to 6,000, which is 10. I'm doing like 40 right now per end-to-end test, which is going to give me, I guess, 150 an hour, and that's plenty. It will grow. I could also refactor the end-to-end tests to just make, let's see, to do one request and then make assertions on all these things. I'm going to add a card for that because that's certainly a decent option. Refactor end-to-end tests to minimize API requests. I'm going to move that up fairly high. That seems like a good option, but it's also just a stopgap. So that, let's see. That will basically make it so I can like run one end-to-end acceptance test per episode, which might be okay. Maybe a little more, like 2 per episode. Increasing the unauthenticated rate limit for OAuth applications. You can pass your app's client ID. So I could get a client ID, and then I'm assuming it would be tied in somehow with mine. Conditional requests. What's that? You can use the values of these headers to make subsequent requests to those resources using the if none match, if modified since headers. Huh. Okay, so it sounds like if modified since. So it sounds like we can put this tag or whatever into the request headers. This is basically a way to implement caching. I am assuming. So in essence, I slurp down the results, I cache them, and then I see if my cache is invalidated. Oh, goodness. I don't really want to worry too much about persistence yet. I'm just kind of scrolling at random now. Abuse, rate limit, staying within the rate limit. User agent required. All right, conditional requests. That's, I think, what we were just reading about. Cross origin. Well, this is, I suppose, the perils of watching all the application development, as it were. Pagination, that's interesting. Requests that return multiple items will be paginated to 30 items by default. You can specify further pages with the page parameter. Okay, so at some point, I'm probably going to need to have this app authenticate, and that's going to make this development a little bit interesting because I'll then have things I'll have to hide, which is a little bit annoying, but all things can be worked around. So there are 3 ways to authenticate. Stop. Sorry, sometimes I can't unhighlight. Basic authentication, so... Huh. What does this do? I don't know if... What? Curl. Ugh. I wonder if PowerShell has it. Let's try it. I always think of PowerShell as like Windows kind of Microsoft. Parameter named U is ambiguous. Oh, that's wonderful. Is this something with the quotes? Use basic parsing. Sent in a header. Curl U. Let's see if possible matches include use basic parsing, use default credentials. Okay, so maybe we curl U PowerShell. Goodness gracious. Linux man pages curl. Yeah, there we go. -U. There it is. --user. So what did this say? Maybe it's user agent? Well, that's promising. It's a 200. If any of these others, use default credentials. Okay, it's not that. Use basic parsing, URI. I'm guessing it's that user agent one, so let's go back and see. Basic authentication. Requests that require authentication will return 404 not found. Okay, that makes sense. Get your current rate limit status. Resources 60, remaining 23. Search limit 10, remaining 10. Okay, so that tells me I'm still in the... I haven't authenticated yet. Okay. Search has a custom rate limit. Rate limit rules. So if I did basic authentication, let's try this. API basic. Okay, so this is back. You can use personal access tokens. Create your own personal API tokens for use in scripts and on the command line. Okay, so I can do that, but I can't show you. That might get interesting. Via username and password. Via OAuth tokens. For example, if you're accessing API via curl will prompt you for your password, which didn't happen. So it's not user agent. User? So it's not prompting me for my password. That's kind of interesting. Curl. Let's see what happens if I do this from a Linux machine. I'll show you that in a sec, don't worry. Just logging in, I think. Oops. Username. I don't have a token. Really? Well, I'm just kind of striking out on all fronts here. Curl is an open source. PowerShell equivalent of curl. PowerShell 3 has the new command invoke rest method. Choco install curl. Ugh. So much yak shaving. And then put the git bin folder after installing. Let's see, do I have that? Program. Maybe I have this. Success. All right. Sorry, I'm doing things off on the other window where it came up. Curl. I like where this is going. Although I don't even know if I get this right, if it's like going to help. Crap, where did that go? Huh? Back. This is not what I want. Rate limiting, custom rate limit rules. Curl. Here we go. All right, now you can't see what I'm typing here. So that works. Let's try api.github.com rate limit rate limit rate limit there it is. So if I do it from here, let's see what happens. It did not buy me anything. So in spite of all that, I still have a limit of 60. Well, I'm going to consider this episode mostly to be a conceptual spike. Anything? No, still 22. And I'm not going to get too hung up right now on figuring out how to get that 5,000, because I don't really need to do that to proceed. So I understand this. I understand the limitations. This is probably going to be important so I can run more often. Let's see. I could also create a console app for the arbitrary input. Huh. Now there's going to be more things to do, like implement pagination and implement some form of results caching. And we are now at the 17-minute, 28-second mark. So this has not been like overly productive, but it has been somewhat informative, and you've gotten to watch how little I know about all sorts of different command line things. Let's see here. Close everything but this. And at the very least, profiles equal when I supply location. So I'm just trying to think about how we might I'm trying to say when I supply location, which means I should be able to specify it. Let's do it this way. You know what? When I wheeling search, I'll just call it wheeling search. I might be overthinking this. Right? Is this cheating? And now I have a hypothesis that given my 20 left, I should be able to run this without hitting a rate limit and go. Yes. Let's go back here and see what happened with rate limit. Rate limit. Oops, no. And that took 10. So that's perfect. Now I can run this thing once every 10 minutes, which means that probably as a sort of established pattern from here forward, what I might do is just run this like once at the end of each episode, or maybe max twice an episode I'd get if they're around 20 minutes each. So not a lot of coding accomplished, but a better understanding of the limitations of what we're doing here. So in this episode, I refactored end-to-end test to hit the API less, thus allowing more tests prior to hitting rate limit. I'm going to commit that. I'm going to push it up to master. I'm going to ruminate a bit on how I can get either a higher rate limit or, how basically to handle this without giving away my credentials. So until next time, thanks for watching.